When you think of the Cold War, you probably picture Berlin, Cuba, or Vietnam. But what if I told you one of its first and most brutal battlegrounds was in the heart of Africa? This is the story of how the dream of a free nation was sacrificed for Cold War politics. A story of betrayal, assassination, and a stolen future. This is the story of the Congo. Before independence, the Belgian Congo was less a colony and more a personal piggy bank for King Leopold II of Belgium. From 1885, his brutal rule turned the country into a massive labor camp. Millions of Congolese died while being forced to harvest rubber and mine minerals. Even after the Belgian government took over, the system remained designed for one thing: extraction. Africans were kept out of government, the army, and higher education. But the Congo had something the world desperately wanted: copper, diamonds, cobalt, and most importantly, uranium. The very uranium from the Shinkolob mine that was used in the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima made the Congo strategically vital. On June 30th, 1960, the winds of change finally swept through. The Congo was independent. The new prime minister was a charismatic nationalist named Patrice Lumumba, a man with a vision for a united, prosperous Africa. At the independence ceremony, Belgium's King Baudouin gave a speech praising colonialism, calling it a civilizing mission. The crowd was polite, but one man wasn't having it. Lumumba took the stage for an unscheduled speech, and his words echoed across the globe. We have known tiring labor. We have known insults and blows. We are no longer your monkeys. In that moment, he became a hero to millions of Africans, but to the West, he became a dangerous man. The celebration was short-lived. Just 5 days after independence, the National Army, the force publique, mutinied against their white Belgian officers who refused to accept the new reality. Chaos erupted. Belgium, using the excuse of protecting its citizens, sent its troops back into the Congo without permission. The young government was losing control, and Western media painted a picture of a nation descending into savagery, incapable of ruling itself. This was the perfect cover for what came next. The real prize was the mineral-rich southern province of Katanga. With secret backing from Belgian mining companies and the Belgian government, a local politician named Moise Schoen declared Katanga an independent state. This was no grassroots movement. It was a corporate heist. By splitting Katanga from the Congo, Western companies could keep control of the copper and uranium mines, gutting the new nation's economy before it could even stand. Lumumba saw it for what it was, a neo-colonial plot to dismember his country. Desperate, Lumumba appealed to the United Nations for help. He asked for UN peacekeepers to expel the Belgian troops and end the illegal secession of Katanga. The UN sent a force, but to Lumumba's horror, they refused to intervene in Katanga, calling it an internal matter. The UN, an organization he had put his faith in, was effectively siding with the forces trying to break up his country. Boxed in and betrayed, Lumumba made a fateful decision. He asked the Soviet Union for logistical support trucks and planes to help his army fight the secessionists. He insisted he was neutral, not a communist, telling the world, "We are not communists, Catholics, or socialists. We are African nationalists," but it was too late. The simple act of asking Moscow for help was a death sentence in the eyes of Washington. In the paranoid logic of the Cold War, if you weren't with them, you were against them. The U.S. ambassador frantically cabled home, calling Lumumba the Castro of Africa. President Eisenhower's administration gave the green light. The CIA chief in Congo received a chilling order. Patrice Lumumba was to be removed. The agency even sent a tube of poisoned toothpaste to their station chief, one of several assassination plots they cooked up. While these cloak and dagger schemes were underway, the CIA found a more reliable asset inside Lumumba's own government, the Army Chief of Staff, a quiet colonel named Joseph Desire Mobutu. The walls were closing in. In September 1960, pressured by Belgium and the U.S., Congo's President Kasavubu announced on the radio that he had dismissed Prime Minister Lumumba. Lumumba, in turn, declared Kasavubu deposed. The country had two leaders, and chaos reigned. Seizing his moment, Colonel Mobutu, with quiet CI encouragement, launched a military coup. He neutralized both Lumumba and Kasavubu, claiming the army was taking control to restore order. Lumumba was placed under house arrest, guarded by UN troops who had once been his hope. After months of confinement, he saw his support in the country crumbling. He decided to make a run for it, escaping his home to join his supporters in the east. But he was captured by Mobutu's soldiers and, in a final act of betrayal, handed over to his worst enemy, the Katangan secessionists led by Moise Chombe. On January 17, 1961, Patrice Lumumba, along with two of his political allies, was taken to a secluded spot. He was beaten and tortured before being lined up in front of a firing squad commanded by a Belgian officer. After the execution, Belgian agents dug up the bodies, dismembered them, and dissolved them in sulfuric acid to ensure no trace, no grave, and no shrine would ever be found. The CIA didn't pull the trigger, but they had cleared the path, approved the plan, and watched as their Belgian allies and Congolese puppets did the dirty work. News of his murder trickled out weeks later, sparking riots and protests from Accra to Moscow. Lumumba the man was gone, but Lumumba the martyr was born. His death did not bring peace. It plunged the Congo into 4 more years of brutal civil war. Rival factions, backed by different global and regional powers, tore the country apart. Lumumba's followers rose up again in the Stanleyville Rebellion, only to be crushed by an operation involving Belgian paratroopers and CIA-piloted planes. The Congo became a playground for mercenaries, spies, and armies fighting a proxy war for masters in Washington and Moscow. Finally, in 1965, the man the CIA had backed from the beginning made his final move. Joseph Mobutu launched a second coup, seizing absolute power. He would rule for the next 32 years, renaming the country Zaire and himself Mobutu Sese Seko. He became one of the most corrupt and ruthless dictators in African history, looting billions while his people starved. But to the West, he was a reliable anti-communist ally, a pro-Western strongman who kept the Soviets out and the copper flowing. The Congo Crisis was officially over. The West had its man, and the Congo had lost its soul. The tragedy of the Congo was a defining moment, dragging a newly independent Africa onto the Cold War chessboard. It showed how the ideals of freedom and self-determination could be cynically crushed by the interests of superpowers. Patrice Lumumba remains a powerful symbol of Pan-African hope, a leader who dared to demand true independence and paid for it with his life. In his final letter to his wife, written shortly before his death, he predicted his own legacy. "History will one day have its say," he wrote. "It will not be the history taught in Brussels, Washington, or Paris, but the history which will be taught in the countries freed from colonialism and its puppets. Africa will write its own history, a history of glory and dignity. His dream of a truly free Africa was buried with him, but the hope he inspired lives on. Thank you for watching. If you found this story important, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the history you weren't taught in school. See you next time.